Hello, my name is Jay Burcham. Today I'm going to give you a little bit of information about LEAPS, where it came from, the terrific tools within LEAPS from content to assessments and reporting to our delivery system and the folks we're working with, and the exciting direction the initiatives are going that are going to take us into the future of education. To begin with, LEAPS came about from a management team working in mental health care. We lived in a world where managed care was beginning to take control, and therefore all issues had to be tied to an associated problem. That problem had to have an identified diagnosis, then it had to have a pathway for solution and measurable results. And what came about from that was managed care. Well, that opportunity to work within that managed resource environment led us to working from a problem-solving standpoint, much like the direction education is going today. And through that process, we refined and developed LEAPS, a social and emotional development system that deals with behavioral problems from that beginning point. How do we change things? How do we go about identifying needs? And then how do we deliver a significant content coupled with assessing processes that really let you go in and create change? What that change is based on is the ability to understand that our educational system has a very linear path of progression. First graders are supposed to be ready for second grade, third for fourth, etc. But our kids don't always mature at that same level. What LEAPS does is it helps close the gap in maturation, because oftentimes when that maturity level or that social and emotional development does not work in conjunction with the anticipated progress of the students through the educational system, those gaps become the functioning part of creating behavioral opportunities. It's that etiology of behavior. So we work with teachers to provide the tools necessary to close the social and emotional development gaps that lead to many of the behaviors we're seeing in the classrooms today. Well, the first tool in making that happen is the content. And LEAPS has an extremely robust library of content that was born from over 600 interviews determining what are the social and emotional skills necessary to integrate into and have success within social, familial, educational, and someday vocational settings. The curriculum is then parsed into areas of functioning from our youngest and our K through 2 beginners into non-socially independent youths, all the way into socially independent kids who are beginning the transition process into even greater levels of independence. Then we developed a methodology that shows our younger kids working from an authority-based curriculum and our older kids learning from a peer-based curriculum. And then we developed a pedagogy that really was able to let kids get in and begin learning social skills and be involved in the process of problem solving, the identification of problems, how to make choices, and then how to assimilate that from a classroom into real world. We do that through, like I said, very strong curriculum. We have curriculum, as you'll see here in purple, for our middle level learner kids, and then the gold for our older kids. And every lesson has goals and objectives that tie back into the assessing processes. And then step by step of how you teach these skills, how you use these skills, the questions you ask, the scenarios you give, the in vivo role play scenarios that you work with. Then again, they're tied back into the levels of learning for those mid-level kids. It still matters what the teacher says, and so it's centered around an authority affirmation format. So you have things like I pledge statements, compliments and backpats, right ways and no ways. For our older kids, it's written in a peer affirmation format, because that's where they really get their affirming desire from, is from their friends, from their peers. So we have talking points, probing questions, outcomes and hints, really guiding the discussion to learn the need and use of these skills. Every lesson has a skills lesson recap. This goes home to mom and dad and it restates the goal, gives the key points of exercise, tells you the consequence of using the skill, the benefits, the consequence of not using the skill, and the benefits of using the skill. And then every lesson also has worksheets and rubrics associated with it. That way teachers know what's going on and they can track it. So for our mid-level learners, typically grades 3 through 6, there are 89 specific lower maturity and intervention lessons. For our older kids who are socially independent, typically grades 7 through 12, there are 109 higher maturity and independent lessons. And then for our youngest kids, for our beginners, we have lesson plans that have goals, objectives, vocabulary words, pedagogy, and instruction laid out. It's built in a vicarious learning model that has story time that goes through different scenarios that from story go into questions, go into role plays. It's bifurcated on kindergarten in grades 1 and 2. You still have those recaps that go home to mom and dad as well as the pedagogy, but really tailored towards that vicarious learning model of introducing social skills to our youngest kids. So there are 44 of those lesson plans. And so nearly 250 lesson plans that range from kindergarten through 12th grade really set upon what the needs of the kids, the needs of the students, the needs of the young adults. And every single lesson within LEAPS is correlated to the Common Core. You can go on to LEAPS, identify the area you're going to teach within, find the Common Core, pull that up, and you will have a full correlation of every single individual lesson plan to the standards within Common Core where a strong correlation exists, and it's listed out for you at grade level. So everything in there fully correlated already. And so it's a lot of material. So how do you get to what you need? Well, you do it through assessments. And LEAPS offers multiple formats of assessments. 6 different individual assessments that are split into dual functioning levels for those lower maturity or younger kids and higher maturity, older kids. 3 assessment options within those 2 different functioning levels. And that includes interview, informant, self. There's also a group observational tool so you can actually observe and then make a report from a classroom. So a teacher can do Tier 1 prevention-based work in the classroom based upon real results of what they're seeing. And so a teacher can go in and you'll see with categories ranging from responsibility to respect to bullying, just choose a category. LEAPS will ask you, what are you seeing happening in your classroom? And then based upon your observations, it will say, here are the 5 or 6 primary lesson plans we recommend for your class within that category that you've selected. That's Tier 1. And now, rather than choosing from 240 some odd lesson plans, here are your 5 or 6 primary, 5 or 6 secondary. It will track when you teach it, keep up with the report, and give you everything you need for classroom-based prevention management. And then for our kids who actually need an assessment, there are 6 different assessments, once again bifurcated into lower maturity and higher maturity. You choose the one you need. You can administer them by paper. You can take an entire class to a computer lab and assess all kids at once on a self-reporting. You can send an assessment to another teacher, a parent, or you can complete an informant yourself. You can do it online or on paper. Do it online, do it by paper, enter the data, and what you get back is a profile of the student that tells you here's their overall level of functioning. It will plot out for you the different categories of where strengths and weaknesses lie. That way you can communicate with mom and dad and remember those recaps from the lesson plans. Once they've seen we're going to really focus, for example, in this one on anger and emotional management, now when you send a recap home, they'll understand why you're doing what you're doing. You close that communication gap. And most importantly for you as a teacher, it will actually give a formulary type prescription of here are the lessons you need to teach, and it will split those out for you. Say here are the recommendations for intervention, for prevention, for social supports. That way if you're doing Tier 2 small group, you can actually take these assessments and LEAPS will roll them together into a single profile that gives the same information for a small group. Then when you get to this drop down of recommended lessons, you're always teaching intervention needs on a priority basis to that group. So it's a terrific way of knowing why you're doing what you're doing. And that all leads into great data collection, which then in turn gives you the ability to have strong reporting. These strong reports are there for your initiatives, for your regulatory stance, for auditing, and most importantly to make sure we're doing what we need to do. And so those reports are divided into fidelity reporting, the fidelity of implementation. Are people doing what they're supposed to be doing as often as they should be doing it, and are they satisfied with it? So those fidelity markers. Couple that with progress. How were our kids doing before we started? How are they doing as we end? And then let's aggregate that. Let's report across grade levels. Let's report across buildings. Let's roll it up into the district. We also look at saturation to make sure that as many people as possible are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and couple that with quality assurance reports that go to you so you know where you need to target for more training, for more intervention and where your areas that are really doing well. Let me give you an example. Our good friends in Miami have been with us for a while, and as you'll see on here, we can track for them. Their licensees have grown. As the fidelity of implementation gets stronger year by year, we continue to grow. We can track for them. Here's your logins on a month-by-month basis. Here's the lesson plans access. You can begin to see, here's the fidelity markers. Here's the satisfaction ratings with your folks. And as you'll see through thousands and thousands of lessons taught, the excellent rating is just sky high. That tells them, my folks are, we've got enough that are using it. We're creating strong results. They're getting in there and they're using the program and they're satisfied with it. So those fidelity markers then get coupled with progress markers. Here's where our kids were to begin the year in these very important categories. Here's where they were to end the year. And so we can plot out and say, here's your percentage of progress. So now we have automated progress reporting that is pulled out of LEAPS through those assessing processes, coupled with fidelity of implementation reporting that is tracked within LEAPS through just general use of programming, and that creates all the reports necessary for your fidelity of implementation, progress monitoring, and then that can be individualized to one child or one teacher, rolled up to a grade level, rolled up to a building, rolled up to a sub-district or the district. So it's a very powerful reporting tool that really tells you what's happening. Terrific data to work from. And that's made possible because LEAPS is delivered online. That cloud-based delivery allows us to build in the back-end analytics that tracks all the information necessary to create the reporting we just showed you. It also lets your folks access LEAPS from their classroom or their home, where teachers do their prep work, or where you have counselors that work with multiple schools. They can access it from anywhere. It also allows all those reporting mechanisms to be at your fingertips as an administrator. And so that online delivery allows not only the quality of content delivery, but also on-time, real-time upgrades, updates, all that terrific stuff. And it also brings about the opportunity for web-based training for folks, because we can get online and show them how to do it, because they'll be utilizing the program online. There are a lot of cool things happening. And as you begin to look at the different opportunities schools have to work within LEAPS, obviously IDEA within RTI-A, RTI-B, on moving into MTSS, Title I, where we have a high level of poverty, there's a need for social leveling and social competency training. Title IV, curriculum, all these places that districts are using to work with LEAPS. And that leads us then into the initiatives that are really driving the opportunity to bring social adjustment, social training, social competency and leveling, emotional development into the classrooms, and realizing how important that is. And so, again, LEAPS is correlated to the Common Core. As RTI-A and RTI-B begin to converge into MTSS, that integration of the RTI models, what we begin to realize is that it's so important that the academic is coupled with the social and truly educate the whole child. And again, LEAPS is fully correlated and ready for that process and has created terrific results. Couple all of that with the fact that there are monthly ongoing professional development webinars available to our LEAPS users that go through the topics such as RTI or MTSS, but also topical webinars such as how to deal with bullies, how to calm your kids down to take the test. Those webinars that help your folks realize how to use this powerful tool in a way that creates real results with real needs in real time. And finally, as LEAPS continues to grow, you'll begin to see things like LEAPS for Parents, the criminogenic version for juvenile justice, where a lot of success has been realized, LEAPS for higher education, a gaming environment, health and human services, portability through tablet accessibility. It's a bright day, and even better times are coming. So visit us at goleaps.com. You can download free lesson plans, research papers, profile examples, and welcome to LEAPS.